A movie that holds memories of Christmas times in the past and a recalling of the early 1970s. There is a level of nostalgia that this film contains that is unspoken of. So let's take a look when this genre was made. 2023. How is that possible? How did a film made only a few years ago deploy this level of understanding nostalgia? How did released in 2023, The Holdovers emerged in a year of massive hits such as Barbie and Oppenheimer. Directed by Alexander Payne, he chooses instead to emulate the American New Wave cinema, which was a film movement that was also known as New Hollywood. It rejects the old studio system in honor of more experimental, socially conscious films. Writer David Hemmingson describes the film as semi-autobiographical. Dialogue and situations were from his own youth. While the film is not an adaptation, it does carry the feelings of memories from the past. Budgeted modestly, this film did earn 3 times its cost and was critically acclaimed. This is the world behind and in front of the film, and it does in fact play a heavy role in its effect. The world of The Holdovers is relatively self-contained. We spend most of the story within Barton Academy, which is this prestigious boarding school for boys. It takes place in New England in the 1970s. The second half of the film does explore outside, which is when the characters really begin to crack open from their shells and spread their wings. The Holdovers is a comedy drama. It is a genre hybrid. It's got very strong elements of coming-of-age subgenre. The witty dialogue adds to the comedic genre. There are occasional quick cuts in the scene where Angus breaks his arm. There's a lot of quick cuts, and it's a bit jarring almost because the whole film has been relatively quiet, which adds to the success of the comedic achievement there. But the long, still, wide shots with nostalgic Christmas music cater towards the more drama. To quote Thomas Schatz from his film genre and the genre film, quote, "Ultimately, genres of indeterminate civilized space, aka musical, screwball comedy, social melodrama, and genres of determinate contested spaces such as Western, gangster, detective, might be distinguished according to their differing ritual functions. The former tends to celebrate the values of social integration and tend to cast an attitudinally unstable couple or family unit into some representative microcosm of American society, so that their emotional and or romantic coupling reflects their integration into a stable environment. Instead of offering some neat resolution, it embraces more of a grounded, realistic tone, really cementing itself as a realist sort of film if we're thinking between formalism or realism. The Holdovers is most certainly a realism film. The Holdovers uses both the two familiar genres to let us ease into the story as it dives more to a really in-depth character study on these different characters rather than just a straight-up comedy or straight-up drama. A quote from Rudolf Arnheim from Art and Perception. "Time may be dropped in the course of a scene only to produce a deliberately comic effect." Case in point, the arm-breaking scene, as aforementioned. It was a massive change in pace as we saw there being some comedic elements, but when Angus jumps off that springboard and breaks his arm, as it cuts to him in the car with his arm broken, with the up-closes of Paul and with his lazy eye. It's just really funny with the close-ups because, you know, comedy is normally done in the wide, but in this instance, the close-ups really add to it because you can see the flusteredness and the stress on his face. It's so good. Montage in The Holdovers is used for varying purposes. They are used to show a setting or a character's intentions. The montages are not used for the passage of time, although it does pass indeed. The montage at the beginning of the film explores the prep school and sets into the audience's mind what kind of location we're going to be in for the majority of the film. The second kind of montage is used to show a character's thoughts or inner feelings. An example would be Angus's sneaking around the prep school at night, hinting at his future dialogue on mental health and restlessness. In addition, we do see Angus sneaking and eating ice cream, which could allude to strict parenting, not allowing junk food, which further hints at his broken family dynamic. These montages are not fast. In fact, they are relatively short, but slow at the same time. We see a lot of static shots with slow crossfades that tie them together. They feel more like a dream or a memory from the past. The Holdovers blends close-ups and wide shots very well, and for different purposes. We're going to talk about that for a second. A quote from Elsa Esser and Hagender. Close-ups enable the spectator not only to see aspects of the world in a previously unknown light, but also to look at him or herself as in a mirror, since the close-up typically shows a face or gives the world the ability to look back at us. In life, we don't usually get to see someone's face as close as we can in a close-up in film. You would have to be 2 or 3 inches away from someone's face to get that scale. Notice how awkward this is. One of the most impactful shots of The Holdovers is at the very end, after Paul and Angus exchange a handshake and Angus walks away. There is a close-up of Paul as Angus walks away, and it's a close shot of him saying "see ya," and he's got tears brimming in his eyes. We can see a man brimming with both sadness and joy as his found son departs and begins to leave, as Paul knows he probably won't ever see Angus again. And it is a very powerful shot, and I am so glad they chose to do a close-up, because the acting, the physical face of his lip trembling and the tears welling up. To quote A.O. Scott from his book Better Living Through Criticism, quote, "If we pause to figure out what is happening before our eyes, we may yet catch a glimpse of that rare, perhaps mythical bird, the subjective universal. There is a beauty in stillness, and there is a beauty in seeing lots of things." Case in point, the wide shots in the Holdovers. In the beginning, there is a wide shot of the dining hall that is full of the dorm boys eating. It is very full, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of noise. These boys are about to leave for Christmas vacation, therefore, it's very exciting, right? Later in the film, after all the residents leave, the same angle returns, but it's emptier. There's a visible sense of abandonment, despite the fact that the eating hall remains very beautiful. It being empty feels like a metaphor for abandonment, which is true for each of the main characters that we follow. Angus feeling abandoned by his mother and stepfather, Paul abandoning his passion as he's gotten older, and Mary feeling abandoned by the loss of her son in Vietnam. As Sobchak writes, we do not experience any movie through only our eyes. We see and comprehend and feel films with our entire bodily being. This helps explains the film's sensory tone. The 16mm grain, the soft lighting, the long shots with no cuts. This creates a almost melancholic feeling that you can feel in your chest. It is the feeling of Christmas time. It is the feeling of the sadness that Christmas time brings. There is also a use of formal realism, as Dix has explained before. There are natural performances, the diegetic sound that morphs into non-diegetic as we move on through different scenes, and the continuity editing. It grounds the film realistically. This is a very realistic film. This is something that could happen, which also plays a part into the nostalgic memory piece, because it is so accurate to what could happen in real life, is that we almost feel like we have a connection to it, despite the fact that none of us have gone to school in New England in the 1970s, and yet we can feel this connection to it. To tie everything together, based on what I've said about the self, our passions, our wants, nostalgia, how different shots and sizes can influence it, how the acting styles can influence it, how the editing and montage brings together this sort of dream-like film, I want to bring our attention to hermeneutic phenomenology. Art can make you feel different. A.O. Scott puts this better than I can. I mean, my closer examination of the Holdovers revealed many key factors of both this specific movie and films as a whole. I had not discovered kind of the weight that close-ups and wide shots really add to films, and especially this one. And that kind of sounds obvious, and what I will say next will also sound obvious, but shots matter. And it's because there are people behind the camera and behind the creative vision that make these decisions for our experience. Jotting down hundreds of words whilst experiencing this nostalgic rush of a movie that I've only seen twice, while paying attention to it in a phenomenological lens, it's focusing on my experience of a film. Your experience truly matters the most in a way. Regardless of what directors or the editors or the cinematographers wanted you to feel, you will choose to feel whatever it is that you feel. And that is what's most important about a film, is how subjective it is. I just find it to be super beautiful.